Whole Lotta Red is the long-awaited second studio album from Playboi Carti, one of hip-hop's most beloved and polarizing artists today. This new project was arguably one of the most anticipated albums throughout 2020, thanks in part to Playboi Carti's constant and almost endless teasing of his fans, as well as the very positive reception to his debut album, Die Lit. For me, Die Lit was one of the biggest surprises of 2018, considering that his self-titled mixtape that dropped the year before was nothing to really rave about aside from a couple standout singles. Die Lit, on the other hand, really helped to establish Carti's singular sound, and whether you love that sound or hated that sound, it was a very distinct one, characterized by bass-heavy beats and some insanely infectious choruses and refrains and hooks. Die Lit is an endlessly fun and enjoyable album with a sonic consistency that I think is very hard to come by, especially when you look at some of Carti's perceived peers in the game. Tunes like R.I.P. and Love Hurts and Chopper and Long Time Intro and many more ensured for me that this was just one of the most addictive albums to come out that year. Fast forward a couple of years, and Playboi Carti is, without a doubt, maybe the most enigmatic and mysterious and sometimes downright confusing artist working in the rap game. His social media presence speaks for itself, pretty much leaving his fans completely in the dark until the moment his music finally drops. And what we assumed was the first taste of this new album dropped earlier on in the year with the single Atme. Myself, like many, assumed that this was going to be the lead single to the soon-to-drop Whole Lotta Red. And on this track, he really accentuated his baby voice more so than I've ever heard him before over this strange, stuttering Game Boy-esque beat. However, he pretty much completely pulled the wool over everyone's eyes with Whole Lotta Red, which dropped on Christmas Day, being a whole new world and sound for Playboi Carti that we hadn't heard before. Heavily inspired by punk aesthetics and vampire aesthetics and even satanic aesthetics in the album's promotional material, Whole Lotta Red is way more manic and boundary pushing and, dare I say, even avant-garde than Die Lit could ever be. This is the dark, seedy, grimy underbelly of Die Lit. It's largely devoid of Pierre Bourne beats, who provided pretty much the entirety of the beats on Die Lit. Another major difference on this album as opposed to Die Lit is his use of features. Die Lit was an extremely feature-heavy album with some superstars like Travis Scott and Nicki Minaj and Lil Uzi Vert and Gunna. And this new album only has 3 features, and that's in the shape of Kanye, Cudi, and Future, who are seasoned vets. What I think is the main difference is Carti pushes even more for a greater emphasis on delivery and aesthetic and flow and melody rather than lyrics. And I think this is why this might be an album that is essentially a hip-hop purist's nightmare. The result of this has been, as I expected at least, extremely polarizing, but I think Carti's willingness to experiment with his sound and not play it safe is a testament to his work. As a result of that willingness to take a risk, I think Whole Lotta Red has some of Playboi Carti's very best work. Let's start with the features. Kanye features on the second track, Go to the Moon, over a Wheezy beat. It's a very short song, it's under 2 minutes. Except this is nothing like a typical Wheezy beat that I've heard at least. It flip-flops pretty violently between being playful and being downright fucking demonic. I think that flip-flopping does a very good job at keeping the listener on their toes. I think the Kanye feature is pretty good, but that always asking for Buddha, you a Budapest bar is one of the stupidest Kanye bars I've ever heard. Carti makes essentially what is a cameo appearance on his very own song. In fact, you don't actually hear him say anything until there's 45 seconds left of the track. And if you discount ad-libs, he's only on the track for about 25 seconds. Teen X with Future gives us a taste of Carti's classic baby voice sound with the I'm on an X, I'm on a codeine chorus. Carti's delivery definitely saves this song and is by far the highlight on this tune because the production gets kind of grating after a short while, and Future's feature is one of the weakest I've heard from him in years. Finally, Kid Cudi appears on the song Metamorphosis and easily has the strongest of the 3 features on this album. His trademark angelic humming forms the bedrock of this instrumental for a large part, and Carti delivers yet another infectious hook with the "when you feel like this, can't nobody tell you shit." Carti and Cudi, to a certain extent, use this song as a way to express their evolution as artists. Carti is going from a rapper or a trap rapper, mumble rapper, whatever you want to call it, to a bona fide punk superstar on this track. It's by far the longest song on this album, running well over 5 minutes, but Carti manages to keep your attention by constantly switching up his flows and having multiple different inflections as well, and that stops the song from potentially dragging because of its length. The third song on the album is the song Stop Breathing, and in my opinion, this is hands down one of the best things Carti has ever created. I think it's a fucking monster of a song. The extremely dirty, loud, bass-heavy beat, Carti's ad-libs and the way he uses his breathing as ad-libs as well just add to this menacing nature of the song. But it's mainly the opening set of bars, the "ever since my brother died, I've been thinking about homicide." It's one of the most manic things I've ever heard him on. He strains his voice to the point, like a metal singer would, that it sounds like it's hurting him to rap these bars. I think the Gucci Mane, "I take my shirt off when this whole start breathing" interpolation for the hook is a stroke of genius and recontextualizes a trap classic into a new crazy punk anthem. It's songs like these that genuinely make me miss going to live shows because of obvious circumstances. Vocally, his performance is more akin to someone like JPEG Mafia than his supposed contemporaries like a Lil Uzi Vert or a Gunna. What surprises me as well about this album is the level of variety. Carti still finds room to give his fans a taste here and there of the Carti that people know and love. The song Sky is essentially vintage Carti, just refined. It's got a fast pace, very simple beat, and again, it displays Carti's knack for writing just fucking catchy as hell hooks. It's just a song about being high and nothing else, but it's the delivery that elevates it. And where do what you can imagine him performing this live. Vamp Anthem, of course, is one of the downright most hilarious moments on the album, mainly for that instantly recognizable Johann Sebastian Bach sample. Of course, that organ piano sample is usually associated with all things horror and violent and macabre, and it's perfectly fitting when you consider just how crazy and manic this particular song is. Vamp Anthem is essentially what Nosferatu would cook up if he had Fruity Loops. I think the main area of this album where it really starts to get bogged down is in the runtime, which I think is at least 20 minutes or so too long. And there are some songs that are clearly more thought out and structured than others. Benno is essentially At Mare Part 2 without any of the interesting delivery or flows. No Sleep is the one moment on the album that is a genuine headache for me to listen to. And that's not because it's too loud for me or it's too abrasive or anything like that. It's because the elements of the song, the different components of the song, just kind of clunk together awkwardly and do not mesh well at all. Consistency, that super consistency, is the one thing that holds this project back from being a great album rather than a very strong collection of songs with some hits and misses. And I'm not entirely sure why this is the case on this album, because on every other aspect of this project, Carti is willing to try something new and be different and push the boat out, but he succumbed to the single most irritating and annoying trope in the current world of trap music, and that is just a stacked runtime. If Carti had made this project a 40 or 45 minute album, I think it would have been a real statement of intent, and that statement would have matched the sound of the music. There aren't too many trap, mumble rap, whatever the fuck you want to call it, albums that have a brisk and concise runtime, and I think Carti could have filled that gap. Aside from this, there is still so much to love and enjoy about this album, particularly Carti's willingness to embrace new genres and sounds. New Neon has this trance, dance, EDM inspired beat provided by Molly Raw, which works really well against Carti's locked-in flow. Place is one of those tunes that you could describe as being somewhat cloud rap inspired, bearing some resemblance to old school Little B beats. Place is also one of only 2 Pierre Bourne beats provided on this album, And even so, it's still a far cry from anything I've heard him produce before. It's much slower and definitely spacier than most of the beats that you usually hear Pierre drop, but that space allows for Carti to fill every nook and cranny in the instrumental. The penultimate song, Not Playing, again follows that trend of dance, electronic, EDM inspired beats with one of the most bouncy and energy-fueled instrumentals on the entire project. It's definitely Carti at his most dynamic and expressive vocally on the album, especially that "I'm not playing no more, I'm not playing." Considering the very playful nature of the beat and Carti's very interesting but sometimes hilarious vocal inflections, I don't know why, but I find this song surprisingly really emotional. Now, I don't know if that's because the song warrants it or because I'm just emotionally defective. Easily one of the most replayable and downright enjoyable and fun songs on the album. It's that contrast between the light and the dark, that very cartoony, spacey instrumental and those massive knock-in 808s and drums. The album ends with the song Feel Like Dying, and I think this is where we have discovered a whole new world to Carti that we've never heard before. It's built around an amazing use of a Bon Iver sample from the last album, and it forms the emotional foundation and bedrock for the song. Carti uses this song as an opportunity to discuss his insecurities and his mental health and his overall ambition as an artist. And I never thought in a million years that I would say this about a Playboi Carti song, but this song does genuinely push me to the edge of dropping a couple of tears. The way Carti delivers, and I feel like dying, it sounds like he's really straining and struggling to get it out. And I think that's why this song is placed last, but also why I think this song was probably recorded last as well. It's the most emotional and vulnerable he has ever been on record, period. It's also for things like that, the way he delivers that particular line, why I think Carti chose to put more of an emphasis on delivery and feeling and emotion rather than just pure lyrics. His delivery of these relatively simple words completely recontextualize his writing, and it makes it, I think, even more powerful than if he had just delivered exactly what he wanted to say. He declares himself a rock star like Jimi Hendrix before saying it's time to show them what he learned before he dies. I'm in no doubt that the recent passing of other rap superstars like Juice WRLD and like Pop Smoke and like Mac Miller and like X was playing on Carti's mind when writing this song, and I can imagine that seeing his peers die so early really put his mortality into perspective. It sounds like he wants the opportunity to display and show his artistic growth while he's still here on this planet. And it's genuinely moving to hear him express these emotions. It perfectly bookends this album, and it sounds like the last word of a chapter for Carti. And I hope, and I don't doubt this, I hope that his next project is even more different and even more boundary pushing. And I hope that he's not scared of potentially alienating his fans just for some guaranteed streams. Whole Lotta Red could maybe never live up to the hype that it garnered, because it was definitely the most hyped about album of 2020. But I think what it most definitely did is give us a new version of Carti, and I think his career will definitely benefit from it. And I think in hindsight, the reception will be less polarizing. Those are my thoughts on the album. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys think. Make sure to like, subscribe, and dong the bell. And I shall see you next time.